moving on to the second session for the day on legal aspects in child and adolescent psychiatry, an Indian perspective. I request the chairperson of the session, Dr. Kailash, Associate Professor, Department of Psychiatry, CHRI, to take over.
Yeah. Good afternoon, all. So, our first session has ended. It was by Dr. Soumya. Now we are moving on to our next session. We'll be starting in a few minutes. The next session is on legal aspects in child and adolescent psychiatry. It's a difficult area. It is an interesting area, less explored area. It's an area which, like it was emphasized by our chief of guest and guest of honor, that all psychiatrists have to take up the responsibility of dealing with child psychiatry issues, and when a legal aspect comes in during the management of this, we should be aware of how we will manage it. So I'm welcoming upon our next speaker, Dr. Shankar. He did his MD from Madurai Medical College. He is currently an assistant professor in Government Dharmaburi Medical College. He worked as a DMHP psychiatrist in Namakkal, and he was a former senior resident. Was a former senior resident and assistant professor in Salem. Now he is in Dharmaburi Medical College. His fields of interest are neuropsychiatry, personality disorder, genetics, and in forensic psychiatry. And he was the winner of the Professor Dr. Balan Award for Best Postgraduate Research Paper in TAN-Psychon. He has many publications to his honor, notably Minor Physical. He had a publication in International Journal of Indian Psychology and also an Indian Journal of Neurosciences, cognitive dysfunction, cerebellar disorders, minor physical anomalies, and electrophysiological abnormalities in borderline personality, and on self-inflicted burns. Okay, so these are, we have an, he has a lot of interest in quizzes, and he has guided a lot of UG students and postgraduate students. Like, he is the person to go to if you want to win a quiz competition. So he's been the guide of most of the people who have won TAN-Psychon and Ipsocon quizzes. Okay. Yeah, we'll start in a few minutes. Yeah. So he's Dr. Shankar, and I invite Dr. Shankar to take over the session on legal aspects in child and adolescent psychiatry, an Indian perspective.
Thank you, Kailash.
Yeah, Shankar, we are able to see you on your slide also.
Fine. Can I start the session?
Yeah, you can start the session, Shankar.
Okay. Warm good afternoon to one and all. And I, first of all, congratulate the organizing team. Such a short period they are organized a wonderful online conferences, that to international level. For this is the first time this is happening in Tamil Nadu. So I wish them for best success. It's almost half success now. And I again thanks to the organizers for giving this wonderful opportunity, because this is something new for everyone. So we'll enjoy this new experiences and new innovations. Thanks for introduction, Kailash and Shabiba. So let's move on to the today's topic, legal aspects of child adolescent psychiatry, an Indian perspective. Before getting into the topic, few things about the forensic psychiatry. So we all know the psychiatry is one of the most neglected, stigmatized field among medical specialties. So in spite of that, we have gone through so much. But in psychiatry, again, the neglected field is forensic psychiatry. Yes, the forensic psychiatry, during our post-graduation, we just go through only 2 weeks of training. Throughout India, it is like that. So very, very inadequate training for forensic aspects in general, not child adolescent, in general. So we are very much lagging about forensic aspect in psychiatry, that too in child psychiatry also. So we need to improve the duration of training courses, as forensic psychiatry is definitely needed for everyone in day-to-day practices, both outpatient, inpatient, and other type of communications. Wherever you go, the legal aspects will follow you. So you need to thoroughly know about the forensic aspect. So now coming to today's topic, legal aspects of child adolescent psychiatry, Indian perspective. So my topic will be very much useful for postgraduate students and those who want to know what exactly happening in Indian setup. I'm not going to in detail about the theoretical aspects of this legal topic. I'm just highlighting what is going on in the legal aspects of child adolescent psychiatry. So basically, forensic psychiatry, we deals with civil laws, criminal laws, and other acts like that only we used to prepare. But in child psychiatry, related to legal aspects, it's little bit different from the adult because many of the civil or criminal laws will fall under these acts itself. So there are no separate or very less number of civil or criminal laws related to psychiatry. So I would like to highlight the 4 important and commonly followed acts in relation to child adolescent psychiatry. First among is POCSO 2012 Act. Second one is Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016, Mental Health Care Act 2017, and Juvenile Justice Act 2015. So the last session was child sexual abuse. So of course, if I continue with the first act like POCSO, it will be a continuing session like B. So let's see about POCSO. So this act is Act number 32 of 2012. It contains 9 chapters and 46 sections under Ministry of Women and Child Development. POCSO is basically a child-friendly process. It means that the medical examination, recording statement by the police or magistrate, and the child who is involved in court process, everything is friendly process. It is not similar to adults. So there will be emergency medical care. It is also highlighted in this act. That is, in 24/7, all the medical specialties supposed to treat the victim of the sexual abuse. Its failure to treat results in punishment, legal punishment. And this act also involves in care and protection to make arrangement to child such of care and protection and punishments. So the punishment for the offenders is very severe based on this act. Again, I would like to highlight the important friendly aspects in this manner. So the burden of proof is on the accused side. So if somebody is making a complaint about a particular individual who abused a child, then that accused has to prove he is innocent from his side. So the child-friendly measures for recording statement, a support to family and child. The confidentiality will be maintained throughout the procedure. It is a speedy procedure in one of the court proceedings within 30 days or 1 year. Compensation will also be given to such child. So I'm going to highlight only the mental health aspects or the involvement of psychiatrists in this act rather than dealing the act in full. So these are the sections where the mental health person or a psychiatric aspect is involved in POCSO Act. Yeah. Chapter 2, 3, and 4, that is between section 3 to 8, they deals with sexual offenses. So these are the sexual offenses that are listed in POCSO: trafficking, penetrative sexual assault, aggravated penetrative sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, harassment, pornographic use of children for such things, abetment. So why I highlighted this in this topic in the mental health aspect? The reason behind, so aggravated penetrative sexual assault and aggravated sexual assault, these are the 2 areas where we deals with mentally ill child or a mentally retarded or intellectually disabled child who's being abused by an authoritative person. So if somebody in the position of power who is abusing a child of mentally ill or mental retardation, then it is called aggravated penetrative sexual intercourse. If it is not penetrative, then it is called aggravated sexual assault. One more thing which is involved in mental issue, including following sexual assault, that is sexual abuse, if the child develops any severe mental consequences, that will also be included under aggravated PAC and aggravated sexual assault. So we should know these kind of things has been listed in the POCSO Act. That's why I added here. So next, chapter 4, that is section 21, deals with failure to report, not only a psychiatrist, but to all medical professionals. So if we failure to report a person who is reporting of abuse of an elder, so there will be punishment of minimum of 6 months or a fine or both. So we have to report. There is a problem in reporting, whether we have to follow the confidentiality or not, like that we will discuss in controversies. Section 26 and 27, recording and examination. Remember, previously told it is a child friendly. In this section, recording in court or police has been allowed, but based on POCSO, nowhere it has given. During psychiatric evaluation or a medical examination, audio or video recording, they have not given anything. If some during the course of time, if some of the police bringing you a sexual victim and asking that I would like to record your examination procedures or psychiatric interview, please never allow, because there is no such section is available under POCSO. But they can record in court and police, but not in hospital settings. Similarly, if they insist, we have to ask for magistrate request. Then section 30 under chapter 7, in culpable mental state, it is not related to victim, it is related to accused, that is involved person. Culpable mental state means the person has an ability or understanding about the motive, intention about the crime. So in case if magistrate orders, we have to assess his mental state based on this section. And chapter 8 has 3 sections relating to the mental health. Section 33, compensation. So compensation is nothing but they will give compensation for the child who develops mental illness following trauma. Similarly, the next section deals with interpreter or expert. This is where the only place where that expert, which includes a psychologist or a psychiatrist or many mental health expert. So during that time, if magistrate orders, he can order under this section for evaluation of mental status of the child. So many times we get cases under this section of the POCSO, so that we can assess the mental status. So we can assess whether the child is mentally ill or not, mentally retarded or not, having a capacity to understand or not. These are the ways we have to assess and we have to certify. And section 39 of the same chapter deals with guidelines. So guidelines is about the same, that is the previous section. Government has to prepare guidelines for getting an expert opinion. It can either be a government or a non-governmental organizations. So these are the acts in POCSO that deals with mental health aspect. So coming to controversies, so POCSO has a lot of controversies relating to the day-to-day practices. So consent, based on POCSO, the consent for examination of a child is less than 12 years. The less than 12 years, the child is not we can get consent from the parents. If it is more than 12 years, we have to get consent from the child or adolescent. So what happens if the child is not giving consent for examination, but the parent wants, then there is a problem that if parents or the magistrate wants, then there will be a problem relating to this. This is one of the controversies. Regarding medical examination, again, medical examination, we have any hospitals they have to do, but the examination should be done by a female doctor for a female child. What happens if there is no female doctor in that particular institution during that time? So that was not also addressed. And regarding treatment cost, when it is a government setup, then it's not a problem. When they are taking the child to a private setup, what will be the treatment cost and details about it as not mentioned. And there's one problem between 16 to 18 years of age. That is a consented sexual intimacy between 16 to 18 years. Can it be considered POCSO or not? So of course, the role of psychiatrist is very, very minimal. On see, just in this section only, that is expert only, they are asking. It's a very, very sensitive topic, that is child sexual abuse, because the child sexual abuse at that young age and abuse can result in so much of psychiatric complication in the future. The brain growth, development will be altered, the personality change can occur, the traumatization that can cause lot of harmful complications in when they become adult. They can develop PTSD, etc., etc. So, but still, the role of psychiatrist is very minimal in POCSO. So, during our routine practices, if any child is reporting some symptoms, some psychiatric presentation, and the history of sexual abuse, whether to report or not, that is a problem. Then pedophilic. If a pedophilic individual comes and tells that he's having erotic feeling towards someone and he had in the past, whether to report or not, this is not highlighted in CONOPOC. So regarding reporting, we have to report irrespective of the confidentiality. We have to report. It's better to report in a child helpline rather than in a police station. So child helpline, they will follow 1098. And the last and most problematic controversies in POCSO is re-victimization in every stage. That is a child friendly. The name is given a child friendly, but the child has been re-victimized in every stage of the procedure. So this is the biggest problem, so that the child can have a high risk of psychiatric illness following that. So this is capacity assessment. So whether the patient is having mental disorder or not, an impairment in capacity has to be assessed on basis on this if we get a magistrate request. So this is one of the statement by a child sexual abuse victim. So I asked you help, you made me repeat it to 14 other strangers. You converted my private nightmare into a public nightmare. I asked you to put an end to my sorrow, but you all put an end to my life. So by a CSA victim, one from foreign country. So that's all from POCSO. Next, we move on to a next track relating to child psychiatry. Rights of Person with Disability Act 2016. Previously, we have Persons of Disability Act 1999, and in that Act 1995. So there's a dramatic change between these two acts, is that the rights has been increased. Many rights to live, rights to for reproduction, voting, etc., etc. So much of rights has been included, and of course, the disability has been increased from 7 to 21 subtypes. The disability has been increased from 7 to 21 subtypes. Let's see what are the important child-related aspects in rights of person with disability. Though I have added the certification procedure and guidelines, but not dealt in detail because it needs a separate class. So, Ministry of Law and Justice, Act number 49 of 2016. It has 17 chapters and 102 sections. It has 21 disabilities. The Act passed 2016, but the guidelines for certification only came in 2018 only. Let's see. So 21 disabilities mentioned under specified disabilities under EZC. So in this Act, they have given 6 categories, whereas in the guidelines in 2018, it has given 7 categories. But I have updated only the 6 categories that is given in the Act: physical, intellectual disability, mental behavior, neurological illness, but chronic illnesses, multiple, and others. So in intellectual disability subcategory, they have added specific learning disability and autism. And in mental behavior, they added mental illness. Whereas in neurological category, they have added secondary mental illness following chronic neurological conditions. That will be needed for an adult, whereas the other two will be related to child psychiatry. Let's see. The certification of specific disability came under the section 56 and 57 of the Act. And as previously told, in January 4, 2018, the guidelines for certification released. And one important thing in Rights of Person with Disability Act is benchmark disability is 40. So they have created this benchmark disability for many purposes. So if you have this disability in any of the domain, so you can get you can access this act for all rights, particularly free education, and more importantly, job reservations. So in job reservation, there's one special thing. So intellectual disability, SLD, autism, mental illness, and of course, multiple disability. All together, they are given only 1%, whereas the other illnesses, blind vision, locomotor disability, and hearing difficulty or deafness have 1% each. So, but these all 5 together have 1%, and this 1% reservation for state government only. Let's see the disability certification. So I have given intellectual disability, ID means, then SLD specific learning disability, ASD is autism spectrum disorder, MI mental illness, and secondary mental illness. The secondary mental illness will not be important in child adolescence. So coming to the other four, so mental illness, if the child is having, it will be categorized under this act as mental behavior. They ask the used to ideas and IQ assessment for the mental illness as tools, and the authority will be psychiatrist, and they have not mentioned anything regarding the age of certification. Coming to the other three important neurodevelopmental disorders, one is intellectual disability, coming under the category ID. The tools, adaptive function, intellectual function. For adaptive function, VSMS. For intellectual functioning, BKT and Mullins scale. Similarly, for SLD, initially IQ assessment done by Mullins and Wechsler's, followed by Niemann's SLD battery. So medical authority for ID is, of course, psychiatrist, a pediatric or pediatric neurologist, whereas SLD, psychiatrist name has not been there. It's a pediatrician or a pediatric neurologist. ASD, nothing has given. Similarly, for intellectual disability, the certification age less than 5. If we find a children of less than 5 with intellectual disability, we have to certify it as global developmental delay. Then we can revise our diagnosis or revise our percentage of disability at 10 years and 18 years subsequently. Whereas for SLD, we have to assess only at the 8 years of age, then 14 and 18. So these are the tools and category and age of certification in medical authority under this act. So what happens for autism spectrum disorder? What to follow? So there is an answer for that. See. So there is no disability certification based on rights of person with disability acting for autism. So for that autism, we have to follow a guidelines given by National Trust Act. This act made a guidelines in 2016. Of course, the certifying authority is psychiatrist. So they asked us to use incline tools for identification of autism. For assessing the extent of disability, Indian scale for assessment of autism, that should be applied 6 or above 6 years of age. There are so many policies under this act has been given for the autism child. One among important is the health insurance policy. Niramiya's health insurance policy, Adisha centers, early intervention centers, Vikas daycare, and there are so many names are given. Sambhav, assisting devices. So similarly, there are 10 to 15 such scheme has been given under National Trust Act for autism. So the certifying age actually, so the assessment age is 6 years. I have given 5 and 18. This is 5 is not the certifying age. 5 is for a temporary certificate. That is, if you certify an autism child at the age of 6 or 7, it will be valid for 5 years only. Then you need to reassessment. Depends upon at what age you are providing. So that 5 is not related to 5 years of age. 5 years from the age of certification. So this is the patent for autism under National Trust Act 1999. So these are some of the positive and negative aspects of Rights of Person with Disability Act. So positive aspect is mental retardation name has been changed to intellectual disability. There is a reservation added 1%, and special code for not the persons who are not following such act can be punishable under this act. And they're given so many rights for education, home, reproduction, voting, justice, equal legal capacity, protection, etc. And it is more of client center. So negative aspects from psychiatry side, single medical authority. Previously, the certification was by single medical authority, but now based on this act, they asked to form a board, and in that board, the following members should be there like that. So it will be very tough for them. The client has supposed to apply and go through tough procedures, but in reality, single medical authority only giving certification, and no role of psychiatrist in SLD. Specific learning disability is purely related to us and one of the neurodevelopmental disorder, but it has no role for psychiatrist. So something very odd. Then autism assessment certification not mentioned. Maybe they have not mentioned because of the guidelines was there by National Trust Act. And SLD and autism, has been categorized under intellectual disability category. So intellectual disability is something different. The other two are something different, but they are categorized under intellectual disability category, something odd again. And no screening tools has been given for those two also. And one more problem is intellectual disability assessment, that is IQ assessment, has been given in mental illness category. So apart from using ideas for mental illness, you need to do IQ assessment also for such individuals. That's all in this. Then let's see the most important of today, that is Mental Health Care Act. So this is the most recent of all. So this act came in April 7, 2017, but forced on May 29, 2018. It has 16 chapters, 126 sections when compared to Mental Health Act. That is 10 chapters, 98 sections. So it is Act number of 10 of 2017. Let's see what are the psychiatric aspect, that is legal aspects related to child adolescent psychiatry based on Mental Health Care Act. So these are the 16 chapters given under Mental Health Care Act, but I'm not going to deal all those things. Child adolescent psychiatry deals only important 5 chapters. Okay, let's see what are the chapters. So preliminary, that is apart from neglecting the preliminary, that is definitions, the other important 5 chapters are given. So chapter 1, section ZF, I thought ZT actually. So it's my definition of minor, that is under 18 years of age. Then chapter 3, section 11, advanced directive. Chapter 4, section 15, nominated representative. Chapter 5, section 21, rights of person with mental illness. There also there's one important section deals with child psychiatry. And chapter 12, admission discharge procedures. And chapter 16, miscellaneous chapter, deals with decriminalization of suicide, though they have not mentioned anything related to minors in this act, but predominant of the suicide falls under adolescent category. So decriminalization of suicide also I have included. So chapter 2, advanced directive. So you know advanced directive, it is a document expressing the way one wishes to receive or not to receive mental health care. Something new and innovative when compared to the previous act. So this act is having a showing much advanced version. It's though difficult to follow, but still it is in force now. So minors cannot make advanced directives, that is less than 18 years. So legal guardian can make an advanced directive for the particular individual under section 11.4. So that mutatis shall apply to such minor till time he attains majority. That means automatically when he becomes a major, he can make an advanced directive. He can do whatever he wants. So that is advanced directive. Then chapter 4, nominated representative. So nominated representative has a role not only in minor, they have a role for those patients with mental illness, severe mental illnesses who needs support, high support needs, etc. So nominated representative for minor has some role like admission, discharge procedures for ECT, for advanced directive, etc. So these are the 4 important areas where nominated representative is needed for minors. So for advanced directives, admission discharge procedures, and for treatment of ACT. So nominated representative can be a parent, relative, or a caregiver. But if mental health review board found that they are not suitable, they have to appoint a suitable person. But still that is also not available, then director in the Department of Social Welfare has to make a person for as a nominated representative for an individual. So then chapter 5, the rights of person is a broad chapter. The rights of a person with mental illness. Under this section, if a female, that is a mother with mental illness, if she admitted, she is having children of less than 3 years of age, we should not separate the mother and the child. We have to assess the risk of mother to the child, and if we found that this is the mental health expert of that home psychiatric nursing, we found that it is risk, then we have to separate. Otherwise, we should not separate, and we need to assess fortnightly whether the child is with the mother or not. We have to assess fortnightly. And if the separation continues for about 30 days, we need to inform the mental health review board. So this is also one of the, though it looks very minor issue, but because bonding bonding is very important. In the meantime, safety of the child is also very important. Both are very important. So that is also addressed in this act. That is a very good one. And the most important fact is the inpatient care of minors. So I have put up a flow chart in the one simple slide, so you can follow that. So previously told, nominated representative has to make a request in the mental health establishment so that he can get admit the minor under the section 87 that will be dealt in coming slides. So on following admission of the minor, so the mental health establishment has to report to the mental health review board within 3 days of admission of a minor as well as women. The mental health review board takes time to see within 7 days. So chapter before going to the section slide related to inpatient admission discharge, one slide about mental health review board. This just forming in Tamil Nadu. So chapter 11 deals, section 73-74 deals with mental health review board. It should be formed by state mental health authority. There will be a chairperson, will be definitely a magistrate, a representative of a district collector or a magistrate, or the representative from a deputy commissioner. There will be one psychiatrist, one medical practitioner, two from person with mental illness or a caregiver of a person with mental illness, or NGOs. So these are the persons will be formed for a mental health review board. So the role of mental health review board is mainly to keep the advanced directives, to follow the admission of minor, to follow the admission of women with mental illness, and also to follow the individual who is crossing the 30 days of admissions. So there are so many works for the mental health review board. Let's see the sections for admissions of a minor under this act. So minor is less than 18 years of age. If the nominated representative presenting an advance directive, we have to follow that. If not, then no problem. That nominated representative, if he or she is bringing the female children, that is minor for treatment, then female nominated representative should be there, or else we have to inform the board and to get a female nominated representative or a guardian. So under section 87, you can admit a minor in a mental health institutions. Following admission, 2 psychiatrists or one psychiatrist with 1 mental health professional or a medical practitioner has to examine, and the child should be kept in a separate ward similar to the adults with all the facilities, and the child is getting admitted in a medical ward. The facilities for the child that they're getting in medical ward is similar to that they have to get in psychiatry ward also. So inform the mental health board in 3 days and they will act in another 7 days. So less than 30 days of admission, you can discharge. Following the request from nominated representative, you can discharge the individual minor under section 88. What happens if more than 30 days? Then you have to apply to mental health review board. So with that help, the mental health review board assesses and gives extension of stay to 90, 120 and 190 of maximum. So there is one issue. What happens if the minor attains 18 years of age during the course of admission? So during the course of admission, if the minor attains 18, there is 2 options. So if the minor understanding things consequences, so he can be treated as independent patient or independent admission under the section 86. So he can ask for discharge by himself under section 88 again. So what in case if that minor turns into adult, still that adult is not able to that is not having insight and a chronic mental illness with needs high security and high support. So they have to admit under section 89 and 90. That is a nominated representative. They are also needed. High support needs less than 30 days and high support needs more than 30 days. So these are the simple flowchart for an admission discharge procedures of a minor based on Mental Health Care Act 2017. So one more thing relating to the minor in this act is prohibited procedures. The next slide I have put up a flowchart. So prohibited procedures. So of course they have mentioned the ECT for minors is prohibited procedures. What happens if still if the psychiatrist wants the child to show improvement, if the child is having severe catatonia with food and water intake, no food and water intake, then we have to inform the consent. We have to get an informed consent from the nominated representative and prior permission from the mental health review board. So following which only we have to do an ECT. The other prohibited procedures under section 95 of ECT without anesthesia, muscle relaxant, sterilization is intended as treatment for mental illness and chained in any manner. So on decriminalization, as previously told, the no word is given minor or the adolescent in this chapter. In general, the suicidal attempt to commit suicide has been more among adolescents. So decriminalization is very, very important. Very important move in this act, because according to the act, any person who attempts to commit suicide is, unless proved otherwise, he is having a severe stress. So shall not be tried and punished under the said code. So need to be given appropriate psychiatric treatment for them. So these are the chapters that are involved in Mental Health Care Act for minors, that is child and adolescents. So let's see some of the positive and negative aspects of MHCA. So positive aspects is increases patient and caregiver involvement. That is good. Accountable system most of the time, that is advanced directive, mental health review board, all those things are standardized operating procedures. No one can move by crossing the area. Rights, this law also has so much of rights of person with mental illness. The nominated representative name has been changed. Previously the guardian, and advanced directive, which is new. And some of the negative aspects of the act, more legalities may lead to defensive practices. So that can occur with some of the individual caregiver. No standards are mentioned for inpatient of a minor. They just simply mention similar to adult or similar to the minor in the medical settings. But they have not mentioned how many beds, how many cots, etc. etc. They are now mentioned in the act. Not address the orphans with mental illness. In nowhere in any act related to child psychiatry, the orphans with mental illness has been less addressed, and still less addressed one is children of person with mental illness. Nobody cares. What happens if a children with a single parent and the single parent is having a chronic schizophrenia? Then that will be a problem. So the mental health of that particular child has been not addressed well. And ECT for catatonia, as previously told, ECT for catatonia, if it is urgent, emergency, then we have to go through so much of process before getting permission. So that is also one of the negative aspects. And let's move on to the last topic of today, that is Juvenile Justice Act, also called Care and Protection Act of 2015. It covers the whole India except the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So finally, it has 10 chapters and 112 sections, passed in 22 December 2015. So the bill allows for juveniles of 16-year-old to be treated as adults for heinous offences like rape or murder. So heinous offences between the age of 16 to 18 will be treated as adult criminal justice system. But that is in a very juvenile area that needs to be explored, because when we see the daily newspapers relating to the abuse, sexual abuse or assault or so many things, we come across a person's name and in the bracket they have mentioned an age, and most of the time we will see 16, 17 or less than 18. So that needs to be addressed very well, or we need a separate act for 16 to 18, that is adult criminal justice system. So this act is something very special, because this act has two things. It deals with criminals on one part, and also the children who are in need also on the other part. So the two parts has been dealt very well by the Juvenile Justice Act. So the act also deals this act has given so much detail about the adoption and lay down so much of criteria. I'm not going to read the definitions of you, just want to know the word at least. Juvenile, of course, under 18 years of age. Child in conflict with law, this is one important category of JJA. And child in need of care and protection, another important part of JJA. And aftercare, this aftercare is between 18 to 21, that is called aftercare. Heinous offences include offences for which the minimum punishment under the Indian Penal Code or any other law for the time being enforced, the imprisonment for 7 years or more. So this is a flow chart I have given. So two important categories. One is child in need of care and protection, CANCP, and child in conflict with law, CACR. So the first one, CANCP, the head will be under the section 29, there will be formation of a child welfare committee. It has one chairperson and 5 members. At least one women member should be there in all the group. And what happens? Who are the individuals will be targeted? The child who is wandering, who is homeless, who's been used for begging purposes, abused, or in labor. So there are so many problems for the children. Such child will be taken care by child welfare committee, and that particular child will be sent back to children's home, shelters home, and specialized adoption agencies, and also aftercare also. Similarly, this side, a child in conflict with law. So this actually, this is the important law that deals with the criminal aspect of child adolescence. So CACL, JJB, we have seen many a times a letter from magistrate of Juvenile Justice Board will be sent for assessment, psychiatric assessment and treatment. Commonly we receive. So as a psychiatrist, we have to go through the both also. So I will tell what are the things. For JJB, they advise to assess the psychiatric aspect of the juvenile and to give a report. Following that, they can make they can make that particular individual and send to an observation home that is still pending inquiry, or a special homes, or after conviction, sometimes place of safety for special cases. And similarly, aftercare till 21 years of age. And some of the sections, apart from these two broad categories, some of the sections that deal specifically with mental capacity or mental assessment. So one is chapter 4, procedure in relation to children in conflict with law. So as previously told, heinous offences. The children of 16 or above, in case if that particular individual requires mental capacity assessment, we have to go through similar to an adult one, but that has not been mentioned in Mental Health Care Act. So we have to go through again JJ Act. So chapter 10, miscellaneous, section 92. If somebody is bringing the child to a child welfare committee, and during the if we found that the child is having a mental complaint, I am using the word mental in many of the acts because in legal system this word is prevalent, so that's why I am using. Otherwise, I would have not used the word mental here. The child suffering from mental complaint sent to at fit facility. There is a two-word term called fit facility and fit person. So fit facility is similar to a psychiatric home treatment. Not similar to psychiatric home is one of the fit facility, and fit person is again psychiatrist or a mental health professional or psychologist, one of the person. So if we found a child from child welfare committee, they will send to us either to fit person or fit facility. Then we have to go through. The next section also deals. What is this? This deals with a child who develops mental illness or addicted to drugs who are already in home, already in children home. So then the child has to be taken to a psychiatric hospital. Later, if improvement, get back to the home, child home, or if it is not improving and needs more treatment, we have to send the child for rehabilitation center. So fit facility and fit person. So this is also in the child in care, need of care and protection. There is a one thing we are already going through many a times. That is district inspection committee will be formed. This district inspection committee will have a member of a board, district child protection officer, a medical officer, a mental health expert, and one civil society member. All these persons have to visit the child care institution, that is to do inspection. The role of a mental health expert, that is a psychiatrist, has to assess how many children are there, is the psychological well-being is good, if the children having any other behavior abnormalities, or there is an abuse, etc. And if we found anybody, we have to refer for treatment to the psychiatric hospitals. So this should be visited once in every month. Usually this order will be come from collectorate, and then we have to submit a separate psychiatric report to district child protection unit. So that's all. There are four topics I have discussed today. So coming to the today's conclusion recommendations. So Mental Health Care Act is the most of the recent one, and it has shown very good improvement in many aspects, including minor also. And rights of person with disability, though it has released on guidelines released on 18, it needs more specific measures, and it should, though it have addressed the importance of rights of person, but not given much importance to psychiatric side, because only 1% is given. Similarly, there's so long controversy is going, what kind of percentage of disability can go for exam, can go for reservation, like that. Locomotor disability, the intellectual level will be good, so reservation for them will be fine. Whereas rights of person with disability for us, that is psychiatric side, the retardation level, intellectual level should be mentioned. so that we can send. Because many a times we come across problem with severe mental retardation or mild moderate mental retardation asking for writing the public exams. That needs to be addressed. And SLD, of course, it's the most important topic for us. Psychiatrist is completely neglected. So then POCSO and JJA. POCSO and JJA is very good for the juveniles, but the psychiatric aspects in both the laws has been very lacking. That too in POCSO, the child sexual abuse is very sensitive topic and is one of the etiology. When you go and read most of the personality disorders, depression, childhood depression, adolescent depression, even adult depressive disorder, when you see the one of the etiology will be child sexual abuse. Of course, the borderline personality disorder. So the borderline personality and few other personality disorders have history of child sexual abuse. So need to POCSO need more psychiatric assessment. JJA also. JJA though are good in categorizing the child in care of need of protection and in conflict with law, but the role of psychiatrist is very minimal again in JJA also. So the other laws I have not mentioned here are very in juvenile state only. So mental health is an essential part of overall children's physical health. So of course we need to take care of our children for them to develop resilience to cope up with stress also. Few things actually they have not addressed. Few things they have not addressed. Many acts not addressed, including children of a person with mental illness. Previously told, this has been not addressed in any act, so need something. And that adult criminal justice system need to be highlighted, and pedophilic or other paraphilias from adolescents has need to be addressed. And one important thing, LGBT issues are very common nowadays in adolescents. As the education, the media, everything is going, giving knowledge to the individual, the child or that is the adolescent is getting get to know that they are belongs to LGBT at the early age, 15, 14, sometimes 16. So they are in a state of confusion, in the state of perplexity. So LGBT to be addressed in any act, that also to be included. So these are the important things that are not in the many acts. So once again, I thank to the organizers, particularly Kailash and Shabiba. Both are my batchmates, both are my close friends. I never expected this. So I once again thank you all for this. Have a good day.
Thank you, Shankar, for such a interesting talk. It's a very difficult topic, but you simplified it with your flow charts, tabular columns. Can I request you to stop your screen sharing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Dr. Shankar had highlighted us about the child-friendly process we need to maintain in POCSO and about the new additions in the RPW Act, and all the illnesses, how to certify it was clearly tabled out. And regarding autism, the National Trust Act and the critical appraisal of these acts were highlighted. Under the Mental Health Care Act, the areas dealing with minors, example, how it deals with advanced directive, nominated representative, and the admission and discharge procedures were clearly tabulated in a flowchart procedures. What are the prohibited procedures according to it? And at last, the Juvenile Justice Act, where the categories were clearly explained, and about the Child Welfare Committee and Juvenile Justice Board and fit facility and fit person. So thanks a lot for such a lucid presentation, Shankar. It's a very complicated topic with a lot of facts, and we have tried to make it more edible for all our postgraduate students who are finding this topic very difficult. So we have few questions which our participants have shared. Just a second. Yeah. A question from Rakesh. Regarding POCSO, you had started with being child friendly, but later you had proceeded with children having a lot of difficulties, like remembering the events again and again. How do you think the flaws in this act can be repaired? What can be done further?
Yes, exactly. As previously told, the knowledge of forensic psychiatry for the psychiatry postgraduate itself is very, very low. Then similar to this, the knowledge about the psychiatric aspect of POCSO for the police personnel and the magistrate is also very, very low. They deals magistrate, police officials, etc. Even the parents of the child deals only the abuse aspect. They are not deal with the psychiatry aspect. So they won't think about the that is traumatization again and again. So it can be repaired by a thorough knowledge of POCSO in psychiatric aspects to police, magistrate, and the caregivers, of course, psychiatrists. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar. Is Mental Health Care Act clear with regulations in OPD settings? How to interpret the act in such settings?
So in OPD settings, there is no separate thing presented in Mental Health Care Act for OP procedures. So because it is clearly stated, it's the inpatient admission and discharge procedures. We can clearly ask the doubt, what is the problem that you go through in OP, so that if it is there, I can mention, because there is no procedure mentioned or no section mentioned for OP settings in Mental Health Care Act.
Yeah. Another question was posted regarding the LGBT issues and the lack of support for the children who are facing issues with family and the society discriminating them. So they want to know, is there any legal, you had already mentioned about this, that there's very less this thing, but is there any other thing with which they can be helped judicially or legally?
There is, as far as I know, and from my references, I have not seen anything related to LGBT law, psychiatric aspect in relation to child adolescent in any of the section of acts. Just I want to, the LGBT community has to come forward, and has to come forward like transgenders. In that LGBT, the transgenders alone coming forward and to show their problems and getting their schemes, housing, money, etc. This even disability card also. But whereas the other part of that LGBT has not revealed because of pure stigma. So that LGBT has to come in person together to the legal system, so that there will be a law created for them regarding the difficulties. As the mentioned laws are before 2018 only. So in 2018 December only, the LGBT has been removed from the 377 IPC. So here after this, we can expect there will be a law for this separately. So because it is very short period, we know that each acts and laws will pass only after so much of years. Similarly, we can expect. So 2 ways we can wait, because only 2 years old, just because of following the Supreme Court release, and also the LGBT, the pride group has to come forward to tell the difficulty. So by this, they can go through.
Thank you, Shankar. Yeah, for our pediatric friends, one of our friends wants to know, what are the powers of a pediatrician in helping children with certification of SLD, intellectual disability, autism, or any other mental illness? What is the power of a pediatrician?
Okay, the pediatrics has the power to certify mental retardation, autism, as well as SLD. So SLD, for SLD, they can exclusively pediatrician or a pediatric neurologist. For mental retardation, under the age of 18 years, and autism, they can certify. So they have to. So because pediatrician, the child psychiatric aspect per se, they will be having less training, and following which the certification procedures, there is a less possibility that they can know about certification procedures. So these three, intellectual disability, under 18 years, SLD, and autism, these three they can certify. They have power to certify without the help of a psychiatrist. For that, they have to go through the certification procedures, including the tools of assessment.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar. I think that's all.
Thank you
for this session, Shankar. Thanks a lot for your lucid presentation. Now I understand why students are behind you for their getting information for their quizzes. You seem to be an bank of facts and all information put together in easily assimilated form, like tables and flowcharts. No, I mean, thanks a lot, Shankar. And there is a heavy demand for your PowerPoint already, Dr. Shankar. So people want.
I will share it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Shankar. Very happy to have heard you. Now I hand it over to Dr. Neha.
Thank you, sir, for letting us go through this educational trial dealing with the various legal aspects of child and adolescent psychiatry.